Hello, and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 44. Excellent title, I'm very proud of. Death and Saxes. It's relevant, you'll see how once we get started. This is Bennett, and in this episode, Daniel and we complain about fire alarms, smoke detectors, whatever you want to call them. And then we bring back superpowers and drawbacks. I realize it's been a while, a few episodes since we did our last. This time we bring some level 1 superpowers and drawbacks, getting back to the trivial roots of the segment. And then we talk about death, namely the costs of death, how expensive it is to die. It seems like it should be free, but actually there are a lot of associated costs. Talk about some of the rituals involved with death and maybe why we do those and how prone the death industry and all of the rituals are to exploitation. So, kind of a morbid topic, a little bit, but also fascinating in a way. And we squeeze it all into a little bit more reasonable time frame. So, I hope you enjoyed the episode.
It's a podcast with you and me.
Yeah, yes, it is. I s- What's
That's
okay,
all I have. I just thought I'd get to the chase, you know?
right?
I could have said Bennett and Daniel, but, I figure you know us by now. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
okay.
podcast as well.
It is. That's our podcast. uh, possi- Possibly the worst opening we've ever done.
I'm all about efficiency, man.
Yeah, I will. I wasn't sure if you were gonna, pick up on it with, our names, the name of the podcast, or anything like that. But you know what? I respect the simplicity.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
All right, lead the way, Bennett. What do you got for me today?
okay, all right. I've got three things that I want to talk to you about. I've got a stupid little event that happened to me. That's probably not even that interesting. I've got
I like not interesting, stupid events.
perfect,
Sounds
and
like a real riveting opening.
this is right up your alley then. And
Okay.
then I've got a superpowers and drawbacks that we can do, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
I've got a topic that I want to. It's not very structured, but I just want to throw it out there, and I'll go ahead and seed the topic in your mind.
Okay.
Death,
Oh,
death,
what? Well, that's just you know,
pleasant.
that's a downer. I mean, yeah,
And
pleasant.
so right, and so yeah, some I just kind of want to talk about. It's kind of a weird topic, so I want to talk about it with you. Actually, I
Well,
think
like specific. I'm assuming you're gonna have some specific
yeah,
elements you want to discuss. Okay, yeah.
yeah, I have some little specific things, but that's the general topic. So you could just have death on your mind this whole
Yeah,
conversation, and
great.
go ahead and be ready for it
Planting
when
the
it
seed
comes up.
of death.
Planting the
Yes.
seed of death. So I had something annoying happen to me the last couple of nights. I just want to complain about it. I just want to
Okay.
vent a little bit. So Thursday night, I went to sleep at my normal time around 10:30 p.m. or so, and I fell asleep as I usually do, really quickly and soundly, and things were going beautifully. It was a wonderful night, and then I was jolted out of sleep quite unpleasantly by a loud, piercing beep, the kind that you normally hear from your fire alarm or your
Like a one
smoke
that you have
detector.
not ripped because the battery has not been replaced, or because it's like going off, as in like alert, alert.
No, because of the battery. So this is
Okay,
obviously an
yeah. The
experience.
chirp, I
The
guess.
chirp. So
Yes.
this freaking
Very
chirp,
distinct.
yeah, very distinct. I mean, this chirp has plagued me multiple times in my life, and if anyone has experienced this, then I'm sure they have the same kind of rage that I do at this one freaking chirp. It never happens at 3 p.m. or whatever time when you just bought batteries or something. It always happens in the dead of night, like in the most inconvenient time. And this is not the kind of chirp that you can just ignore and sleep through. Like, it's piercing and loud, and in my case, it's like right outside my bedroom door. Um, and
It demands attention. It's designed to
yes,
be
it's
annoying.
designed to demand attention, and I kind of hate them for doing that because, like for the alarm part, I understand. Okay, make that loud and annoying because if your house is on fire, then you should probably pay attention to it. But the backup battery is getting low when this thing is already plugged in. Like it's when it's screwed into the ceiling, it's plugged into like your actual electricity.
Right.
The battery
Right.
is just for a backup. So, do you really need to literally every 60 seconds, that's the timer, make this loud piercing chirp to wake me from my sound slumber? Like, no, you do not need to do this. But whoever makes my fire alarms decided to do that, and so I had to get up in the middle of the night, and like I didn't have my contacts in, so I couldn't see anything. I was
Did you
tired.
sigh a lot, or did you curse? Did you bother like
Yeah,
saying anything out loud?
absolutely. Yeah, like the
Yeah.
fire alarms were definitely the target of more cursing than I usually engage in. And so I had to
Yeah.
go like get my kitchen chair and like put it in the hallway, underneath it, and then precariously balance on it to unscrew the thing just to try to diagnose the problem, see what's going on. And of course, it's the battery. It's this plastic, like cheap fire alarm. So like the little tray that holds the battery is loose and jiggly, and so it's like, okay, is the battery dead? Does it need to be
And it's not a double A
jiggled?
battery, right? It's one of these round watch-looking
No,
batteries,
for mine it's
flat.
a 9 volt battery.
Oh, okay.
One of the big 9 volt batteries, but still
I
not a
just don't recall.
common.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to go
You don't have
through.
a drawer of 9-volt batteries, do you?
I don't, but luckily, very luckily, I had this same problem in my previous apartment before I moved, like maybe a year and a half ago, and so I bought some 9 volt batteries for that. The same thing happened to me, and so I actually did have some on hand, thankfully. Otherwise, you would have been hearing on the news, local man goes on shooting rampage, destroying everyone's smoke alarms, smoke detectors. So, all right, but here's the additional weird thing. So, aside from just my petty annoyance at being woken up, it was only 11:15. By the way, I'd only been asleep 45 minutes, which is really strange. I felt like it was the middle of the night. Anyway, I replaced the battery. It stopped beeping. I went to sleep. Things were fine. I was just annoyed. Fast forward to Friday night, and I go to sleep a little bit later than usual. It was like 10:45 or 11 p.m. I lay down and go to bed, and then
Because it's a wild Friday night. That's why.
yeah, it was totally crazy. I was really, you know, like playing video games really harder than I usually do, and
Pressing the
pressing
buttons.
the buttons with vigor, just wild abandon. Anyway, I laid down to go to sleep, and about 11:15, again, I hear the chirp, the freaking chirp. And if my cursing on the first night was bad, this one was just like taken to another level because I just
Right, because you did the right thing. You
yes,
actually ate the cost and did the right
I
thing. And to be
fixed
experiencing this again is like, no, no, no. I've earned the right
yes,
to not
exactly. Like the
experience
sleep,
this. Yeah.
like this is not my problem anymore, right? I replaced the battery. I did the thing. I endured the consequences. Like I was woken from sleep by this thing, and it worked. The solution to the problem worked for 24 hours, and so I was really baffled at what was going on.
Right, like
I
an old battery that you put in, the juice had, like, but
I,
that seems
I could,
unlikely,
it seemed, I mean, the batteries weren't that old. I checked the expiration date on the batteries that they weren't expired or anything. I don't use batteries and then put them back in the drawer. I don't do that kind of thing. And so, like,
Yeah.
I unscrewed it, I took the battery out, jiggled it around, put it back in, made sure the plus was on plus and minus was on minus, all the normal things. It still beeped. I tried, futilely to take it out of the ceiling, unplug it from the power, and go stick it under some pillows or something. But of course, the beep doesn't come from that, and so nothing worked.
Yeah.
I laid down and tried to ignore it, and just after 4 beeps, that's just not gonna happen. And so like but one thing I discovered was, okay, I've got this thing hidden under the pillows in my living room, and I still hear the beep, and it's piercingly loud. It sounds like it's right in my bedroom, and so like I turn on my lights and look, and sure enough, there's a smoke detector in my bedroom too, like which is weird because like not 10 feet away through my bedroom door is the other one in the hallway, and so in kind of an anticlimactic solution, I just changed the battery on this second one, and that stopped it too. But I thought it was odd that not 24 hours apart, exactly 24 hours apart, both batteries died in my two separate fire alarms. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I just thought
Yeah.
it was strange.
I guess,
And no
I guess the
beeps.
batteries are well designed to be like consistent from quality control standpoint. They're
Dude,
dying on
something
the
dying
same
one
time.
day apart, like something like
Yeah.
that. I just thought it was really weird, and worth starting off our podcast with.
Well, quick side note about that chirp that has come to I have now a strange association with it. When Danielle and I were playing the Quest 2 Population 1, the
Yeah.
Battle Royale game, with strangers, and you'd log in and play with other people.
Right.
On, I would estimate 4 occasions, that's a lot in my opinion. You would hear that chirp from their apartment, very annoying while in gameplay. They're ignoring it, and they are the sort of, I'm gonna stereotype, this sort of loser type, all of them. And we would acknowledge and go, "Hey, you should change your battery," and then they would go, "Why does everyone always say that?" And this sort of like they're annoyed that other people keep bringing it up. And I really associate it just tracks for me, this idea that like we all have this experience, and most, like you, sort of address it, but the bigger loser you are, the more you're just like, I think that atrophy, is that the word, or entropy, as I say, like
well,
just
those are
happens
different.
around.
Yeah,
Well,
entropy.
atrophy, I guess.
Entropy.
So
okay.
our life just tends toward chaos, and like,
Mm-hmm.
look, things get dusty and sticky and gross, even if you're a reasonably clean human being. But that's why you just go, ugh, and you clean it.
Yeah.
But the loser does not, and the loser just kind of goes, now I have to adapt to a crappier lifestyle. Because
Right.
the alternative would be like
To do something about
active, to do something about it. And so I really think that's sort of, I mean, they don't consciously say that, but they go, this beep. And then the question is just like, can I deal with it? And like, the answer might even be no, but yet yes, through their actions or inaction. And so, but to have that happen 4 times,
Yeah, that's wild.
yeah.
Was it the
And
same person you were just playing
no,
with?
no, no. These are definitely different people. I mean, there's thousands,
Crazy.
there's
I
thousands
can't
and thousands
imagine.
if not.
I mean, like, so
4 times in the course of like we were playing frequently for only about 4 or 5 months. So
Right.
to have that
That's
happen
still
4
too
times, it was
much.
like we would look at each other and go, "Oh my gosh!" And when you have the headset on and that chirp is a distinct,
Yeah.
piercing, like just for a moment, you're like, "Oh, is that mine?" Or
right.
like.
Yeah,
And
it's
then it
hard.
became kind of like, well, this is funny that this is like this is just I just think there's a lot of losers right now. If you were to say whose alarms are chirping, and the Venn diagram of
Yeah.
losers and alarms chirping are
Yeah,
way,
there's overlap.
that overlap's strong, because it's not long that the non-loser has a chirping alarm. So it's just a funny thing. If you hear someone's alarms chirping, there's
They're
a
a
good
loser.
chance they're a
There's a
loser.
chance they're a loser.
Yeah, I really think that's not a bad. You go to So if you're like on a date and a
Yeah,
girl takes you
ask
back and
if
her
your
alarm's
fire
chirping,
alarm's-
you really might want to reconsider things.
God, that is a metric I'm gonna have to start using. Yeah.
Put in your dating profiles: will not date those who tolerate chirps of fire alarms. Yeah, I'm anti-chirping.
No chirping. Well,
Well, that topic is over.
that's done. All right. Well, are you ready for superpowers and drawbacks then?
I had some electrolytes, and it makes me pee really fast. So instead of us doing some editing job, because this is a common thing, you might not know, listeners, but me, Daniel, I pee a lot, and so I'm gonna go do that. And but I'm just gonna put Bennett on the spot to tell a little, like just be funny.
I'll give the history of superpowers and drawbacks, because every time we kind of forget to say what it is. Superpowers and drawbacks. We have these recurring segments: mind your morals, adventures in etymology, superpowers and drawbacks. But usually I forget to explain what they are. So superpowers and drawbacks. The concept is that I present Daniel with 2 superpowers, and he can choose which one he wants between those 2. But I also present him with 2 drawbacks, and in order to take a superpower, he also has to pick one of the drawbacks. And the thing that I find most fun about superpowers and drawbacks is that there's a scale of power, I guess, from 1 to 10. And I find that the most interesting powers and drawbacks are the ones down at the low end of the scale, the ones that you don't ever normally think about. Like,
I'm back.
you're back. I was just explaining superpowers and drawbacks. And I was
Great.
talking about the power scale, and how, whenever people normally do, fantasize about superpowers, they talk about flight and invisibility, and these are like on the 9 or 10 of the scale. But what I find most interesting is almost trivial superpowers and drawbacks down at the low end of the scale, ones and twos and so on.
Do you think that has to do with us getting more mature and we're interested in the nuance? Because what we're able to do is take the small stuff and extract more meaning from that. And when you're less mature, you don't need you. It's like watching movies. You're not subtle. You want explosions and bad guys who just are so overtly evil. And then we're more interested in, I guess, or at least I am, and more like watching a movie now, I'd rather have the tension, like be like character driven and subtle, and they're like, oh, I see that in other people around me. And so in the same way, you choose small superpowers and drawbacks can be so much more revealing about personality traits. Whereas like these the more grand the superpower, the more it trumps like it's just so powerful that leads the discussion. But when they're smaller, our little idiosyncrasies rise more. Our personality traits and value systems come, they're more at play, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's absolutely part of it, and that's what makes the discussion fun. I also think there's probably, I mean, you put a very positive light on us for the way we do it, but I think there's also like a more contrarian sort of notion to it. Like everyone talks about flight or invisibility, but we're going to talk about blowing streams of air across the room, or changing the color of your skin like to rainbow colors or something. We're talking about this trivial stuff, and well, there's a novelty aspect to it because lots of people gravitate towards that grandiose sort of stuff, but they don't think about how their life would be changed if their foot was backwards or something. Like they don't.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I know. I'm coming up with them on the fly here.
I know those are all like pretty good. I go write those down.
Yeah, geez, backwards foot syndrome. Yeah, like they don't think about that, and so it puts you on the spot, and you have to think about that, how that little thing would impact you. And like you say, your personality plays a lot into that. So
yeah, contrarian. Yeah, I'm not really a contrarian though. I mean,
like,
some
like
people
everyone
think
else.
yeah, not like everyone else.
Those people I like to call labelers. I really don't like those people either. Labelers, contrarians, which I'm not, and labelers. Ugh.
Okay, so you're doing. Right. We're gonna do a superpower and drawback. What level are we at today?
We are going back to the roots with a level 1. The absolutely weakest.
So we have done a level 1 before?
Yeah, we've done plenty of level 1s. Last time, it's actually been a while. It's been in real time for us. It's been a few months. We did level 8, the highest we've ever done, and so I figured it's time to go back to the norm with a level 1.
Okay, I like it.
All right, so here we go. I'm gonna present you with the 2 superpowers and then the 2 drawbacks, and you got to pick one of each or walk away. So the first superpower that you can have is Baby Whisperer. And the Baby Whisperer, with this superpower, if you just make a faint shh noise, then you can command babies to do simple things that are within their power, like stop crying or burp or eat or whatever. So you can't command the babies.
Basically, I could have a baby army if I want.
No. It's
fly the baby airplanes and take over the baby world.
No. Okay. It's not that powerful. That would be like a 3. So with this,
babies can't do a whole lot. Yeah, but you can just be a good. Parenting becomes a way easier, is what I'm hearing. Maybe. Well, I mean,
you can shut your baby up. You can make him eat his goop or whatever. But it only lasts until they turn 1 year old. So after 1 year old, it becomes ineffective. So it's a very time limited power. But it doesn't have to only be your baby. It could be any baby, just any baby under 1 year old. You can command them, override their will, and make them do whatever you want them to within a baby's power. So you could make a baby, shoot a bird for a picture, or smile, or do whatever.
You become a baby photographer and be the best baby photographer.
Right.
Actually, seriously, that's what you would do with this power, I think.
Perhaps so. Yeah. So
you'd be the best, having them do funny stuff and like fun smiles and like totally.
So that's the power.
Make big money that way.
That's the power. The other power that you can choose from is called, pretty uncreatively, I should have thought about this one more, automatic doors. So this one, unlocked doors that are not automatic doors, they will automatically open for you like they were automatic doors. So like your house door or whatever.
Unlocked doors, you said. So it's not like I'm not accessing bank vaults and stuff unless it's already unlocked. Yeah.
Unless it's already unlocked. It does not include car doors. That's an important
Oh,
note.
that
So
keeps it at a 1, I think.
what's that?
Because that's
Yes,
gonna be that's what I said, that keeps it at a 1 because that's the most common door, or
one of
probably,
them
yeah.
that you open. But so yeah, doors to your house, doors to the school, or double doors or whatever.
Just sort of pleasant. You don't have to open it yourself if you
Yep,
carry stuff a lot.
yep.
Whatever, groceries. I don't know. That's nice.
Very practical, convenience, superpower. Not gonna
I'm
get rich
disappointed in the
off
name. It's
that one.
probably as
This is
far
an
as
old one.
I give it a 1 as a name as well.
That's fair. Yeah, it's an old one that's been on the list for a while, and so yeah, I should have thought about that more. Anyway, I'll make up for it with the drawbacks. So, in order to take one of those prestigious superpowers, you also have to take one of these drawbacks. The first one is called Sax soundtracks.
Sax soundtracks.
Sax soundtracks.
Okay.
And for this one, there's always a saxophone soundtrack accompanying your life. Only you can hear it, and it's not loud enough to drown out people talking or interfere directly with anything that you're doing. And it always generally matches the emotion that you're feeling at the time. But it has saxophone flourishes, so if you're really happy, it'll be screechy kind of happy saxophone music, and if you're sad, then it'll be like really sad, honky.
But it is artful in terms of like
It's
its
professional.
quality. Yeah.
It's professional. It's not amateur. But look, I don't know if you're the same as me in this respect, but I hate saxophone music. I think it's one of the most annoying instruments.
I did not know that.
That
I consider
exists.
it pretty sexy, like
Well,
almost
maybe
cartoonishly sexy.
maybe,
like some
maybe this is the drawback for you, then, my friend.
bluesy.
To me, saxophones, they can fall within a pleasant range, but I find that they rarely do so, and they're often like honky and screechy, and they make noises that I find unpleasant, especially if they're the lead instrument of some solo or something. The people go crazy with the honks and the screeches, and I just don't find that pleasant at all. And so your life would be full of these. And for me, if we can talk about this more, I guess, but if I had this drawback, I would hear the saxophone, notice the saxophone, start to get annoyed, which would make the saxophone start playing annoyed songs, and things would just escalate. It would be terrible for me. But
That's a funny thought. It's just constantly like two people, like you and I have chosen it, and I like it. And I'm just going and enjoying some good music, and it's really mellow and subdued.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in a corner, rocking back and forth, and it's going. I don't know,
that's how it
it's
would
the
be.
same thing. Yeah.
That's how it would be.
So how, in terms of volume, is it dependent on the intensity of the emotion? Is there a set kind of, just how loud is it, basically?
I mean, like I said, it's not loud enough to interfere with anything. So I would say it magically modulates to the situation. So that, it's not like you're going to be having an angry conversation with someone and the saxophone is drowning it out so you can't actually hear the conversation. But it'll be there in the background.
Got it.
Always. And it's never going to be so quiet that you just don't hear it. It's always going to be there. It's ever
So
present.
if I'm on this like contemplative walk and feeling very peaceful,
Yep.
it's just going to be this very mild
Yes.
like mood notes kind of playing in the background.
Yep.
Okay, so it's just constant, and yeah, that's a good number, like level 1 for me. Like it sounds like it might be even a 2 or 3 for you, given
be.
your. But for
I would-
me,
yeah, I would have to do some
nice
work.
1 annoyance because it might just feel so natural in the same way. Laughter soundtracks and sitcoms, you kind of lose yourself with that, and it's just sort of an enhancer. Like this could potentially be unnoticed for me, or dare I say a positive, but probably not a positive, just because it's this thing that I'm now taking. Anytime you ask me in these superpower and drawbacks, like I'm taking on an unknown thing and it's now here to stay, that that inherently gives pause to a degree.
Of course.
Okay, I'm wrapping my head around, what'd you call it, sax soundtracks.
Sax soundtracks. A little better. Better
sax
than
soundtracks.
automatic doors. All right, the other drawback that you can choose from is called Blame It on the Dog. So for this one, anytime you fart, the sound of the fart is replaced by a random stereotypical animal noise. So like a dog bark or a bird call, a moo or an elephant noise or whatever. Just a random animal, whatever their sound is. Now the volume of this noise, regardless of how loud your fart would have been, whether it's just a silent fart or really you're just really nailing it, it's going to be a consistent volume animal noise. So, whatever speaking volume animal noise. So not going to be super loud like a real elephant call, or a piercing dog bark or whatever. Just
like a lion
normal
roar.
Yeah, just normal speaking volume, and it's going to be that animal noise.
And so I can't get away with a little silent toot, you know.
Yeah,
Because like when you feel safe about it, like but it's gonna be heard, but it won't be identified.
That's the thing. That's the thing is that it's gonna throw people because you're gonna fart, but instead of making a fart noise, it's gonna be like like a duck quack, and people are gonna what? Is there a duck? Someone have a duck?
But it's undeniably coming from my butthole, right? Like it's not this sort of just a sound. If we're in an elevator, they might be like, does he have a weird phone
ringtone
text?
Yeah.
Probably is what they're gonna think.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the sound does come from your direction, but it's quick. It's just the animal noise, and so it's gonna throw people. They may not know that you farted, and it may take a lot of exposure to piece together that wow, this barnyard sort of sound thing always accompanies a bad smell from Daniel. Like it's gonna take him a long time to piece it together, but
right.
But
right.
Those
so I got a question. So
yeah.
So the opening of like MGM movies, and it's that line that goes
yeah, it doesn't get replaced.
He actually does it twice. So my question, like would I have long, because obviously a quack versus like 3 seconds, 5 seconds to do some sort of long call.
Right.
Can it be a consistent?
That's a good question. It is. It's the duration is it's not always 1.3 seconds. It's however long it takes for the sound to be identifiable, I guess. So, yeah, the MGM start that's a little longer than I would imagine, but one roar, like whatever the roar is, one of those, pretty brief. That's how it would be for lion. Now, for something
but
like,
if it was a coyote, it might be.
Yeah, could be. Well, not quite that long, but yeah, a wolf howl, could be a little longer, like a dolphin kind of noise.
This is a funny one.
Could be a little longer. One other just caveat, lest you try to cheat this one, is that animals that don't make noises aren't chosen. So this magical drawback only chooses animals that actually make noises. So
okay. And the smell is not impacted at all. Like if it was going to be one that doesn't smell, it wouldn't smell, that kind of stuff.
That's right.
The feel is exactly the same.
Yep.
This just has no impact on your bowel movements or anything. It's
Nothing.
Just purely the
purely sound. Yeah. So we don't have to get
in
into.
In fact, in some ways, there's some positive. Like if you really need to rip one, it's not going to change. Versus.
That's right.
Yeah.
So just like with the Sax soundtracks, you can find the silver lining. Maybe that's the beauty of the level 1 drawbacks, is that
it's finding some silver linings.
You can find a silver lining.
But also, I mean, you're going to see a concert or excuse me, like some sort of like a show or someone speaking, or it's just clearly like silence your phone type environment. You're going to see a live performance of a theater, of a play, and like there's if you have to fart, you're gonna have to excuse yourself completely just for a fart, like a little one too.
Even if it would be a silent one that you're like carefully like controlling your butthole muscles.
They're not smelly recently. Like you're confident this would just be one you're sitting there. Instead, you're gonna get like someone speaking. Like someone to be like, silence your phone, most likely, but it's coming from you is the idea.
No monkeys in the theater, sir.
So that's another thing is I want that the quality of the sound is not of a speaker, so it is a little. It might be a little. It's muffled as well, just like it's coming. It's like an authentic sound coming out of your butt. So that's what I'm picturing.
Yeah.
So even though they're gonna attribute it to speakers on a phone, undoubtedly, but that might be a little bit like, wow, that's a clear speaker. Oh, that's a funny one.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna recap here. We got Baby Whisperer,
Yep.
where I can control baby's actions within reason up to 1 year.
Yes.
Automatic doors other than car doors, unlocked doors as I approach, and this is like kind of like as I need them. I'm not walking past doors in neighborhoods and they're flying open.
No, this is like the most
convenient.
It's tailored to your convenience.
It's smart. It's a smart door action. Yes.
Yeah.
But I still like my apartment door. I'd have to unlock if I have groceries or something. So it really, unless I go back and it's 2 trips and whatever.
Yeah.
And then we have Sax soundtracks and so that's just a mild level, non-obtrusive. But it's even like at night as you're falling asleep. I mean, it's kind of it's
playing a lullaby.
Mostly mood music. Yeah. And then blame it on the dog. Any animal sounds for your farts. I'm not excited about the skills you're offering me, but I think I nailed it. My intuition to become a baby photographer and like a world-renowned one, where I could get them to do funny things, where I can set them up kind of like a bunch of babies playing poker and get them to do various sophisticated facial expressions, like ones that are beyond what we think of the comprehension of babies. And he's like, there's something about Daniel, this photographer, that's able to like capture these moments. I mean, I think I could make bank on that. Like, although that's like seriously asking me to shift my entire passions and career. So is that actually something I would find joy in? I don't know. But I really believe that implementation takes it from a 1 and perhaps enhances. Like, I think I could make good money, a better lifestyle than I currently exist. I really think so. Maybe I'm overinflating that.
If you were willing to, turn your life over, which I think brings it back down to the 1. Like, I think at its most practical level, it's like, okay, if you have a baby, then you're going to get a very convenient, for most people, that first year is like one of the most annoying times, and you'll be able to like coast.
I could start a nursery and just like, and be like, everyone sleep.
You could just, that's the power. You have to make that noise. If you don't make the noise, it doesn't work. And the babies just
everyone play. It would just be a very organized, and I don't take them past 1 year, and I just do a great job, and it's super easy. And I actually like I alone could probably have a lot of babies not getting into trouble and being perfectly safe, and engaging in whatever exercise or whatever they need to be doing. I mean, I have to change diapers and stuff because I don't think I'm controlling their bowels. Like, right? That's an interesting one. Like, if I just say don't poop today while I'm with you, shh, like that's not happening. I'm not contorting their bowels.
Yeah, I mean there might be some health implications, but I don't know.
Okay, I wouldn't do that though. I wouldn't force it. But you're right. You're saying I could though.
I think that falls within the scope of the power. Like hold it, like hold it, baby. Like a baby is physically capable of holding it. Yeah, and until their body just says nah, then it would be just like you trying to hold it. You can you can do that for a while, but eventually you can't anymore.
Yeah. So but it's tempting anyway to run a nursery and all of that. But again, I don't like your life is now around babies. Like I don't know that that's my passion.
Yeah.
The automatic doors is, I think, negligible in terms of boosting like life enhancement. I have automatized my door opening in my life into which it does not feel like a taxation. And so opening them, relieving me of this automaticity, doesn't open up a lot of room. Like, oh, what will I do with all the free time? or like
That doesn't
all
open
the
open a lot of doors for you, metaphorically speaking.
yeah, it doesn't open a lot of doors. It doesn't. It's like, oh, what will I do with all my free time, or what will I do with all my extra strength that I've been pouring into this?
Right.
So that's not that appealing. Even though I would say it's a practical daily thing, and maybe I would start to adapt in ways in which I'm carrying more things.
Yeah.
But like, am I really not? Am I making trips based on carrying things and door
Well, you could
opening? I don't
also
think there's a link there.
you could also make more grand entrances, right? Because you don't have to stop and like dirty yourself with the lowly act of grabbing a handle or knob. It would be as if there's always doormen to open the door for you, so you could really strut through entrances. You might could adopt carrying a cane. These kinds of things that could really boost.
I could really enhance my entrances and twirl, or
Yeah.
like walking back or face
Anything.
backwards. The door's open, I turn around. I don't know.
The world is like your doorstep, as they say.
The door. I'm just not finding that appealing. Sax soundtrack. Not that bad, okay? Not that bad. I'm not afraid to take it. I think I would internalize it pretty quickly. I think the risks are low. Might even be moments of enjoyment. I think it would just become natural pretty quickly. I think the blame it on the dog, the fart thing is too risky for those scenarios. Like I've now given up some control of my flatulence, and that's given this
Scary.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a little scary. It's hard to predict. It's hard to fathom all the scenarios I can't on the spot conjure up that are going to present themselves, and I'm going to go, why did I choose this? So if I were to choose, it would be Sax, the Sax soundtracks, and probably the Baby Whisper, just because I don't see much utility in the door thing. But I think I'm walking away, which is a shame because
It's a shame.
It's a shame because I don't I'm very tempted, because if it had just been a little better to me, arbitrarily one of the superpowers, I'm willing to accept the drawback. But man, the superpowers are just so.
What if I threw car doors into the mix? I'll give you car doors.
Oh man, you're giving me car doors. Let me see how that changes things.
Microwave doors.
Ooh.
Car doors, microwave,
doors.
The cabinets,
Do they
cabinetry.
shut too? They just open?
Yeah,
or
it
they
shut. They shut too. Yeah, they shut. I'm throwing it all in, man. What's it gonna take to get you to walk?
Still not good.
Listen, what's it gonna take to get you to walk out of this deal with a Sax soundtrack? What's it gonna take? Let me get you a Sax soundtrack today.
Does that change things for me? I'm trying to think. I microwave some meals, and it's just not that big of a deal, I'm trying to play it up like it's this big burden you're giving. You're like, I could carry ranch and and Cholula sauce or whatever.
Two hands.
Not have to. It just isn't playing out.
I mean, have you ever in your life, been doing the butt push where you push the door open with your butt or whatever, and drop something or fumble your boxes or anything, and this, you never have to worry about that problem ever again.
I could start working in a moving company, and I'm
Oh man, you're getting 3 or 4% more efficient than your colleagues because the doors are just opening
maybe,
for
but
you.
I feel like they prop doors open, and that's kind of one of the first steps they do, and it takes all of. They have door stops.
Yeah, but that's less interesting.
And it's using up air conditioning or something. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm walking away, man. I don't think that sweetens the pot very much. It's the Baby Whisperer one that's if I devote my life to being running a nursery / upscale photography.
All right, let me.
That.
Not to make this into a mind your morals, but what if this just occurred to me? What if you could extend the age from 1 year to 18 years, the whole duration of what we consider to be childhood. What about that?
Ooh, well, yes. Yeah, I'm taking it just for the sake of, well, like, I want to be a parent one day. And so you're giving me, I mean, that actually alone, when I start to revisit my own just personal, like, all right, it's parenthood. I can control them for a year, at least for, like, get those. I'm going to take a nap. You're going to take a nap with me. 18 years. Oh, you've brought it way up to, like,
I know. Well, that's why, like,
yeah.
I think now it's dangerous because
Yeah, now it's like I don't know that I would take it morally, but like believing I wouldn't use it
obviously
for
it's more
evil.
powerful. Obviously, it's more than a one at that level of power. So that's no longer the question. But I just thought it was interesting. Like, well, now that now there's a moral component to it as well. Because now you're
The
like a 3 or 4 month old baby. Like, yeah, okay, like my will is dominating yours, and I'm making you like stop crying. Okay, whatever, big deal. But I mean, well, actually, maybe we shouldn't be so cavalier about that. Like, maybe babies cry for a reason, and there's something wrong, and you should listen to the baby crying. And by you stopping the baby crying, maybe you are doing something inappropriate. But
and for them having to overcome their own tears, they're sort of learning to self-soothe and develop coping mechanisms that I'm robbing them of if I just make them not cry.
yeah, maybe. But everything gets more complex. The older, as the child gets more complex, literally, the situation gets more complex too. And so, like, you're gonna stop your 4-year-old from, doing whatever mischievous thing or running
Or imagine the
around.
16-year-old and you say, I need you home by 10. You will be home by 10. They could be
Yeah,
very tempting just to, because you have rules that you want them to obey,
right.
and now they just will obey it if you,
Command if you
so, yeah, and
you're gonna be home by 10.
obviously, like, yeah. And that just seems, on the surface, that seems reasonable. Like, I need you home by 10, be home by 10. Or you're going to come to the wedding on Saturday to see Aunt whatever. And, like they're like, oh, I can't, I got to study. No, you're going to be there. Like, whatever, like. So, like, and you're going to be happy about it, too. But I don't know. Now you're just robbing them. Like, now, all of a sudden, like, you've infringed upon their humanity and, like, their development as a person. And
Yeah,
so, like, how often would you actually use it? Oh, my gosh.
right.
And each time is very, very questionable. Anytime you're imposing your will on
Yes,
someone in a supernatural way. I mean, I think we try to impose our will
in a natural way.
depending on how you want to define it, but anytime I'm trying to convince you of something, every rule I have, every suggestion I have of parenting and morality, and all of those are me not imposing isn't the right word, but it's expressing my desire for like outcomes and hoping you will, and really trying to make those outcomes come to fruition, and they are about you as a human being. So yeah, I'm projecting and manipulating and posing all these kind of scary words, but like I'm trying to create you as a morally good person in the world. So
Right,
I'm
and I
trying to
mean,
do that. Now we have a supernatural way to do it, which seems to
yes,
rob it of like that's just me exercising a power, not
right,
you becoming a person. So
yes,
it undermines the fabric of like parenthood. So.
yeah, I agree. So you definitely have to be very judicious in in the use of the power if you use it at all after a certain point.
Right, it's tempting to take and then just say. I mean, that could be life saving. A kid is say stubborn and they're out and you're like, I need you to. You see a snake and you don't want them to panic. You're like, come here now.
Right.
And they're an argumentative, stubborn person. Why or 500 minutes or whatever. And you're just like, those are like no brainers. Like, come here and I've saved your life now.
Right.
I've done this and like you're alive because of me. But other than that, it's like these are character issues that we need to work through together. Or I mean, I'm not trying to moralize that. I'm just saying that like they need to learn obedience better, or listening, or acquiescing, or whatever the lesson may be. So
I mean, maybe they need to learn not to get bitten by snakes. Like,
I mean,
teach them
yeah,
a lesson, right? Like, what are you doing?
Venom is powerful. Do you see? Oh, your dad.
Well, speaking of death.
Oh, by the way, what would you do?
Yeah.
You'd walk away, I bet.
Actually, no.
Okay. All
I'm
right. Non-contrarian.
Yeah. I'm gonna choose automatic doors because, like, although I agree with you that it doesn't really impact my life all that much, I do find it convenient. I like conveniences, and I'm gonna choose blame it on the dog because, honestly, the situations in which, like, if the drawback was I can't like quiet fart anymore, I always just have loud farts. Even that wouldn't be that detrimental to me because I mean I don't fart in precarious situations that much, and like even if I did, it's just a fart. It's just not that big of a deal. And with this, it's even less because now I can blame it on the dog or blame it on a ringtone or message notification or whatever. It's just a goose noise randomly. Oh, I guess the migration is happening or whatever. Anything. It's just my trail is going to be covered there. I don't think that it would ever really come back to bite me, and if it did, it would be hilarious, right? Because it's very entertaining and a very entertaining thing to happen. It would make for good
That is
stories.
true. I
So
just
I
wonder if
don't.
my profession as a teacher is what's kind of like. I'm just thinking. I don't know
Yeah,
though. Like,
I think. Yeah, I mean, I think that our situations are different enough that yeah, it's certainly more of a risk to you than to me. Because I mean, I work from home, so it doesn't. It literally makes no difference to me. It might even be a positive. This is the silver lining because I could laugh at all the various animal noises that my butthole produces, and be entertained by it. I mean, oh, what animal was that? I don't even know. I've never heard that noise before. So yeah, it's not that bad for me. I think I'm gonna choose those two, and so you can stick with opening your doors manually and everything. Meanwhile, I'm gonna be waltzing through the doors, maybe let a little fart
making.
fly on the way, and you'll hear a walrus or whatever, and that'll just be my
I
style.
like it. All right, I've been mulling over death. I'm ready to discuss it.
All right. So kind of what I had. All right. So I'll tell you how why this topic was on my mind. Um, as my computer background, I have pictures, all of my pictures that I've taken throughout my life. Just every 30 seconds, it changes the picture. And one picture that popped up was a picture of you. It was a picture from our trip to Japan, and you were posing contemplatively next to some graffiti that said "Death is free." Do you remember that picture?
I do now. Now that you say that, that is, yeah, yeah. We were in
And
a crowded place doing some sort of
in
shopping
Tokyo or something.
in Tokyo
Yeah.
in that district, maybe near the robot restaurant, nearish. Maybe no. I might be confusing, but it was like an alleyway that was crowded and lots of.
Yes.
Uh,
It was
I
actually
think we got
in
some long French fries around that
yeah,
time,
you're exactly
maybe.
right. Good memory. It was in Harajuku. That's where it was, which is like a fashiony kind of district, but very crowded. Yeah.
Yeah. Did we
Um,
buy some sort of a belt or something, maybe, or
I
we needed something practical?
I bought a belt, but it wasn't from that location. It was
Okay,
from somewhere
sorry,
else.
I'm confusing things then.
But
Yeah, but anyway, I saw that
death is free. Yeah.
did we
And
also take a picture with like some sort of boobs was written somewhere?
yeah,
Was
that
that
was
the
at the
same?
belt place. That was at the
Okay,
belt
okay,
place.
so I'm just confusing memories. Okay,
But yeah, very similar, very crowded, kind of shoppy areas. Like the places
and
were
death
certainly
is
similar.
free.
Well,
Well, I mean, it
or
can be expensive to die,
or
though,
is it?
too.
And
Or is it?
herein is the topic. Like I was thinking about, like I was wondering, well, is death really free? Like if I died, yeah, it wouldn't cost me. I'm gonna be dead, so whatever costs
Yeah.
accrue, I don't have to worry about.
To whom is
I
the
can't pay
question?
them.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at like, okay, what is the cost? What is the cost of death? And like,
Funeral cost?
yeah,
Does
like
your money get taxed again after being taxed by the government? Even if
yes,
you said, "Here, Daniel, take it all," it's like they
to
there's a
tax
death
it.
tax, right?
Yes, exactly. So there are things that cost money. Cemeteries. How do cemetery plots work? Like, do you rent them? Is it your land?
Is it a one-time payment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
What's
pay?
the
Do I have to pay like property taxes on it or
yeah
something weird? Maintenance
cremation?
fees,
What if you get cremated? Is it different? Like, do you?
And
I mean,
I think it's
what's
the
the deal with
cheapest
that?
option, but
Yeah.
it's like I'm sure it costs.
The
They don't
coffin
just.
industry. Like, what's up with them? Like, is that a predatory
Oh yeah, there's
industry?
definitely levels of like there's your wooden box and
Yeah.
then there's your like high end roller that probably has like airtight, guaranteed to keep, you know, worms out and
Yeah.
waterproof and da 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 da. And I don't know, like weird, strange, right? The whole
Yeah.
thing's so strange.
Right. And
Uh,
there's different laws
I could see this
about
being very expensive even. So
well,
it's
I mean,
depressing.
all right,
Do you
so
have some numbers?
I
Have
do
you
I
looked
do
this
have some
up?
numbers. I did some basic research, and we can carry it where we will from there. But so I found an article that says the average cost of death in the United States is about $20,000.
Oh, oh, that
So
seems
the
ridiculous.
most expensive state is apparently Hawaii at about $36,000, and the least expensive state is Mississippi at about $15,000. Now these numbers sound
Is
crazy to me,
They sound absolutely nuts.
and
What
so
is happening? What are poor people die more often, I'm guessing, because of there's just a lot of reasons. They're,
their fire alarms, their houses catch on fire because they didn't
there's
replace their
more
backup
poor.
batteries. Bringing it back around. My story is relevant, baby.
Yeah. There are more poor people, and then their health, for various reasons, are they don't receive the care, and they also don't take the care, and blah blah blah. They're dying more often, and they can't afford to die as easily. So you would go the cheaper route. So like, give me the wooden casket and cheap cheeses at the buffet or whatever at the funeral. Give me the discount preacher or whatever.
Right, like the
I'll eulogize myself.
individually wrapped slices of American cheese instead of like your gourmet,
Blocked cheddar. We don't
Yeah.
need any 6-month aged cheddar.
right, smoked Gouda. He lived a Gouda life. Um, yeah. So these numbers sounded ridiculous to me. Unfortunately, the article that quoted these numbers, it was unclear. It didn't have an itemized breakdown. I suspect because the article said in their end of life care included is averaging about $11,000. Now I don't. They didn't explain. This number comes from the National Bureau of Economic Research. End of life care is on average about $11,600. Now what does that mean? Does that mean you have a heart attack and you're just like barely hanging in there for 2 or 3 days until you die, or like
Right?
what's
Is this
included?
hospice?
Yeah,
Like, what is
I,
what are
I,
Yeah.
it's unclear to me. But let's say that we're not doing that. We're not considering end of life care. This is like you die, and then what's the cost? That still leaves $8,000, a little more than $8,000. I think most of that is the funeral. According to the National Funeral Directors Association, the median cost of a funeral is $7,600. Which
Okay. That
again to
lines up with
me,
that number.
yeah, it
There's
does.
two numbers, like end of life care and the funeral.
Right. And there's, a little bit of change in there as well that maybe for miscellaneous stuff, but it sounds like funeral and end of life care are the major costs. So like even that to me is too vague. Like to when I think funeral, I think like okay, what's costing money here? Like there should be nothing, right? Like at its
Well,
cheapest
it's
it
almost
should
like renting a space, and you go and you sign a book to say you showed up for, like, this is the viewing or the day up. There's
yeah,
usually two, right? There's some sort of what do you call it? I don't
the
know. They come like a day, like a
yeah.
day or two early, just for a viewing, and then you have the funeral. And it is a lot of people getting together, and then there's like you hire, but it's usually so funeral service, so
Yeah.
it's the space,
Yes, the
and
space and
then a guy or two
the
who, like,
rented hearse, and like
yeah,
all of that
yeah,
stuff. But to me, like I conceptualize it like a wedding. Really, like it's cheapest. A wedding should be free, right? It should be your friends and family coming around to celebrate while you say
yes,
your vows or whatever, and you can do that for no cost. Obviously the people have to
right.
pay to get together and spend their time, but in terms of paying third parties, nothing. And for a funeral, it seems to me also like the cheapest should be free. Like your family gets together, they dig a hole, they put you in it, and there you go. Like call it a
There
day.
really is like a what do we do with this body kind of thing. You're and anyway, and there's a lot of grief going on, so people are pretty susceptible to just like
Yeah.
that this
Well,
could be exploitation, like
yes.
moments.
Well, see, that's another thought that I had.
Just
Is
like you exploit around weddings too. Oh, I
yes,
love be caught up in it, and it's this sort of once it's an industry, there we don't know about the industry. The average person isn't intimately familiar.
Yes.
So someone in the industry says, no, this is standard.
Right.
And you just kind of go, oh, okay. Especially when you fold in either love or grief or whatever it
any
is.
emotional situation. Well, I was thinking like because death is an uncomfortable topic, humans generally don't like to think about death, especially their own death or the death of family members or whatever. It's easier for our peace of mind in the moment to imagine we're immortal, right? Just push that off into the unknown future and don't think about it. And so if collectively humanity or society is not thinking about death, does that mean that the death industry, funeral services, coffin makers, whatever, tombstone engravers, whatever, all of that stuff, like we're not thinking about that stuff as much. So does that mean that we have advanced more slowly in those areas of industry and perhaps the only people, or I shouldn't say only people, but it's more likely that people who lack the appropriate empathy or who are deviant enough to dwell on the thoughts of death are more likely to go into those industries, maybe for the worse, which made me think, okay, maybe it is more prone to corruption and exploitation if people are selling, they're upcharging like airtight steel coffins or caskets.
Yeah.
I learned there's a difference between coffin and casket. They're upselling those to people that are in grief, instead of just like saying, okay, here's your lacquered pine box.
I absolutely think that's true. And I also think, I was just thinking when you said we don't like to deal with death, in some ways they come in and they know that they are dealing with someone who doesn't like to deal with death. So the services they're offering is let me
take care of it for
let
you.
me distant. Yeah, you don't like death, no one likes death, totally get it, and we will like, because like you said, if it's free and I'm gonna bury a body in the yard, that's pretty twisted. I have to handle the body, I have to dig the hole, that's a very intimate dealing with death. And plus not everyone's gonna know how to do the I'm blanking on the term, where you take the body and you preserve it. Yeah, embalming and all the things that go along with that. No, you wouldn't, but it would start smelling pretty quickly. And so the whole thing feels morbid and uncomfortable. And honestly, you don't want death in your backyard. And let's just say less and less people have like large swaths of land. It's not like everyone lives in the country and like it's not a big deal. It's a mile down the road. And so like we try to distance ourselves from death, and we have collective areas, cemeteries, and and this industry that says take it away from us, please, like take this out of our hands. And we don't even want to go examine the practices because it all feels a bit morbid. And so you get people that maybe are good with the showmanship that come in and go, oh, I'm so sorry, let us take care of everything for you, the complete package is this and this. And you might even be like, let's just say even in your grief you're trying to be practical, so you say, all right, I'd like to see an itemized list. Ooh, this embalming, like I don't even care about. And they say, no. Like if you're saying I don't even want an open casket or a visitation, I just want the funeral and in the box, so you don't need to do any of the embalming. I just have a feeling there's probably a line about why you need the embalming like immediately anyway. And I just have a feeling that they have some set charges that you would push back on, and they'd say, no, like you're not getting out of here without spending $8,000.
Yeah, listen to this. I found a breakdown for at least some of the items that they charge for a funeral. So like the actual headstone can be, if it's a flat like grave marker, it's $1,000.
What?
If it's upright, like an upright tombstone or carved doohickey, then that can be anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000.
Oh my gosh!
Just to install the headstone costs between $100 and $325. That seems seems reasonable enough, though. Pay a guy to carry it with his forklift or whatever to the spot. Like, I don't know, paying for that. The actual burial, the interment, that includes like opening the grave, I guess that is digging the hole, placing the casket in there, closing it, replacing the grass, and completing the legal paperwork and stuff. In a public cemetery, apparently it costs $350 to $1,000. In a private, about $600 to $3,000.
And imagine this: they're going to charge you for that tent and that the green AstroTurf they put around it, and a few chairs and maybe a table, and then do a little mic for, and all the little things. Yeah.
And then apparently this is one that's strange to me. Grave liner. a grave liner, a protective material that surrounds the casket in the grave. The cost listed is anywhere from $550 to $7,500.
Wait, is it a material? I don't
It
understand.
says it's a material. That's just what this table that I found
So you have the
says.
6 foot hole dug, and you just line it with like almost like the way. I mean, what? But who cares? You're not
Yeah,
digging these things up. I mean,
right.
just
Well, I mean,
we just don't like the idea of our loved ones being eaten by worms. But like, we need to accept that and actually
I
see
don't
some
see.
potential beauty in that or something. About like becoming one with the. I don't know.
I mean, no, I totally agree. And when I was reading this, I was a little shocked because I mean, maybe I'm just too cold or something. But I was thinking like, this is absurd. If I died and my family paid $20,000. If we take the end of life care out and they paid $8,000 for my death, I would be mortified in more than one sense, right? Like, I would mortified. What does that? That means like,
What does mortified
I mean,
actually
the
mean?
the root of the word is mort, death, right? So anyway, like I would not like that. Like truly, just take. If I die in a car accident, after you're pronounced dead, then the family it legally gets possession of the body, and so just take me, put me in the trunk, take me to the land, dig a hole, and put me in it, and that's literally enough for me. Like you don't have
Or
to.
incineration.
But
I
that
think
costs
that's
money.
just as
That
right.
costs. It costs to do that professionally. I mean, if you build a bonfire and stick me on, that's fine too, but it's going to be harder to manage. But like,
But there's something. I mean, I could see the symbolic, like, oh, I have a little Bennett on my mantelpiece,
that's
or I put
weird.
Bennett in my
That's
my
weird.
ring.
That's too weird. What I mean, fine. If
I
you want,
agree. Actually,
if
but
you
my point. I guess my point is, I don't want to dig a hole and touch your body and throw it in there and stuff. I
you,
don't want to dig a hole.
I mean,
But
you
I don't know
don't.
that
But
it's.
do you
I don't know
want
how
to?
much.
Do you want to pay $8,000 then?
I would
Like
dig a
which
hole
one?
for less than 8,000. Yeah, I would rather dig the hole.
Yeah, me too.
Uh,
Right? Like, yeah.
It'd
Would
be
I?
disturbing to like let's because if you died, it's probably not like some long disease. It'd probably be a car wreck or something. So you'd have this. There'd be some mutilated like aspects. I
Maybe.
don't
Yeah.
want to
Possibly.
look at.
Yeah.
But like this is
So all
again,
right.
this is capitalizing on my like inability to face death. That they
Exactly.
can
Well,
charge so
that's
much.
what I was
So
thinking. Like, maybe maybe we're coping a little too hard here by outsourcing this to these industries, which have grown kind of fat on our
yeah, because if I had
discomfort.
to deal with it, I'd probably cope better. Like you need to confront the things that bother you. Like you
Yeah,
confrontate. We need a better relationship with death
we do.
for sure. Like
Yeah,
our modern, we just don't do well. We
and
don't talk about it much and all of that. So
and I would find it hard to believe that. Yeah, okay, so I have to like drag your limp body to a hole that I dug and put it in there. Like that's not going to be pleasant. It's going to be unpleasant, but it's not
right.
going to tarnish my view of the person. Like
Oh no!
like
It's more
the
just disturbing, like
I mean,
touching a
so
body. But maybe that would be normalized. Maybe you're saying like
exactly. That's
if
what I'm
that was
saying.
just part of our life is that we do that.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of like, when you have a pet that needs to be put down or something like that. That's a thing that happens. Like if your horse in the olden days like broke its leg or something, and you have to put the horse down, or if your dog gets old yeller gets rabies or whatever, and you have to put it down. It's a thing that happens, and it's unpleasant to have to kill a pet, but it has to be done. And now we have you take the pet to a vet and they euthanize the pet, and to me that just seems kind of. And I don't know how much that costs. I didn't look that up as part of this.
That would be interesting. But the fact that it probably does cost hundreds of dollars.
Yes,
I could
like
see it being $600 easy, right? And
yeah,
they
and they just
maybe 800, whatever. I don't know. Maybe
yeah,
a 2,000.
yeah, maybe
Heck,
$7,000. Right?
maybe
Any
$25,000.
I don't know, $1 million to kill Floofy. Like
Yeah,
seems a little excessive
freaking
to me.
floofy.
But like whatever it is, it seems a little too much, right? Like
I would imagine the poison and the garbage disposal is they're racking up
right.
so
It just seems like
$10
a
worth of
kind of thing.
poison
It seems like the kind of thing that we as humans should be able to accomplish. Like if you have the responsibility of taking care of a pet, then it seems like you should be hardened to the fact that you might have to put that pet down presumably you're making that decision for the pet's own good, um, and you should be able to take on that responsibility as well. But that seems another kind of thing that we've distanced ourselves from, similar to this human death issue.
Well, do we need to? I think we romanticize the bodies and the things to do with them, so we have to
Yeah.
honor the body. We've absolutely romanticized that, and
Yes.
because it would be a travesty to say use the same facilities that burn our trash to burn our bodies. It'd be like, oh no, the outcry would be significant, at least initially.
Yeah.
But it seems more important to honor the memories and honor the humanity and not the body.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Now,
but I also don't like the idea of. I mean, I guess you fold in religion, and then things get really complicated, right? And that's why you have a lot of people don't believe in being incinerated or whatever. You know, like they don't want to. They want their bodies intact for various reasons.
why? I've heard
Honestly,
that before,
I think
but
one of them is I believe one of the reasons a particular sects of Christianity believe that like when God comes and he kind of like restores the earth, and it's an actual physical like heaven will be again on earth one day, and so it'll be a physical thing, and the bodies come back or whatever, and so they're really but this is like a very kind of an old school view. I don't think, but I think it's more it's not that uncommon though. So they don't want their bodies to be incinerated because they don't know what that'll mean when it's time to come back. You know.
Interesting. I've heard that that there are some religious objections to cremation, but I never really knew why or understood why. And well, I mean, I guess there's no need for me to criticize, some religious belief, but I'll just say that one doesn't resonate with me too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, well, if there's going to be a spiritual, like, divine.
Yeah, that's my
thing.
Okay,
then
let's
I'm
take
pretty
that
sure.
belief and
I'm pretty sure God can manage to deal with cremated body.
that's what I'm saying is that like that issue should not really concern you if God is restoring the earth to a heavenly home, then taking your dust particles and like reconfiguring them. Yeah. Because they have to do that anyway unless there's a bunch of zombie and skeletons.
Right. Well, I mean, what about
has also been.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it just doesn't hold water because that means people that have died a long time ago that even the bones have maybe started to decompose. Like all of this has to be restored, so it would include,
right,
cremated bodies. So it doesn't fully. I think it kind of is just fundamentally pinned on some cultural assumptions about just like, that's weird. I'm so used to people get really married to ideas and the idea that like. That you have to bury your body, and then someone comes and says you can burn them, and it's like that feels wrong. That is not attractive to me. That seems disrespectful fundamentally, because if you get hung up on honoring the body, I think this is actually where we went wrong. Is like, I understand we need to deal with death, we need to grieve, so we need some process. So every civilization ever has some sort of routine, because no one knows what to do during death. Hey, I'll be there for you. I'm sorry you're going through this, but no one knows what to do with that energy. So you have ritual, and you have this sort of thing that goes on. But in that process, we honored the body a little too much. Like the ritual involved honoring the body, so it kind of elevated to this holy status that I think can be really like, we're a little misguided there. Honoring the body, like instead of honoring the person, because the person, at least to me, the person is not the body.
Yes.
Even though it makes sense, it's the symbol. I mean, it's the absolute symbol. Like it's
the
close.
Tangible thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, totally. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now on the plus side, it is possible in my research I found to do a cheap funeral if you're so inclined. Like actually in every state in the US except for California, Washington, and Indiana, you literally can just take the body and bury it yourself. As long
what will those three states do? Will they say no?
Yeah, apparently there's some kind of legal limitation on that, and I guess there are only certain areas in which you can bury a body. But
my aunt was buried on her property. They have a big, a lot of. And so, but I'm assuming, I mean, I think it was probably more expensive, right? Because we still did the the casket and coffin and thing,
Yeah.
and there was a tent, and there was a whole thing, and there was
Yeah.
a bit layer, like, so I'm sure it was expensive as
It's just
heck.
if they have to come out and do a whole service out there, then yeah, it's probably expensive. But if it's a private, family thing, then it, like I said, it could be no cost, like just the cost to you and whoever to dig the hole and deal with the actual movement of the body. But I imagine you could, like you wouldn't have to like get me in the dead body in a fireman's carry and have like bodily fluids dripping and whatever. Like you would, it wouldn't have to be gross like that. Like even if you made your own stretcher or something and some kind of shroud, you could do it for very cheaply. And I found
Yeah,
also that you
yeah.
can get what they call green caskets that are made from like biodegradable material like cardboard or bamboo or whatever, and those are like $100 to $700 or something. So pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
If you want to go the next step up, Walmart also sells caskets. I found, so you can get affordable metal or wood caskets as low as $1,000 from Walmart. I haven't seen that aisle my latest shopping trip, but
That's strange to me.
isn't that strange? Get a Walmart casket.
I mean, I'll take a Walmart. I mean, honestly, just cremate me. I'm good. I'm very good. I want that. Like, I guess this would be a sort of will you could show if something were to happen. And yeah, cremate me, please. Like, the idea of, and also like, don't put me on a mantelpiece. Like, do something cool and symbolic. Take me to cool places I liked, and leave. Let me kind of float off in the air, whatever. Just. But that's still more
Scatter
about
my
honoring.
ashes in the classroom.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Put me in like a whiteboard and like, as they
Oh yeah.
manufacture whiteboards that send all out over the country and yeah, I like it.
Package you up
The,
into the robot that's gonna teach from now on.
I want to be an expo marker ink or whatever.
Prop
Maybe
you up on
erased
a
and
toolbox somewhere.
but all of that is because the symbolic gesture of like taking me to places and like remembering me is more than like
Right. Yeah, more than the actual physical dust, ash that is
yeah,
left of
yeah.
you. That's not that important. Also, one other note on casket cost: oversized caskets get much more expensive, so that's another incentive to stay a healthy weight. If literally not dying sooner isn't enough motivation to stay a healthy weight, then the fact that your caskets are going to be much more expensive, let that help you keep your weight under
How
control.
big do you have to be to need to know? I mean, this caskets are big,
They're
you
pretty
know?
big, man, but some people get
There are
bigger.
some
People
people
get
that are
bigger.
pretty big, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then
Um,
yeah, and then like I wonder if the cranes and stuff lowering them in. I'm sure they. I just doubt there's a single person that would. You'd have to bring out the bigger crane or something. And you might. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Does that mean this is a morbid thought? Sorry, but
Child
child
graves.
coffins should be cheaper, half
They
cost, right? If they're like
they are
short and it's
they are
small.
cheaper. Yeah, they are cheaper.
Okay.
So yeah, at least that's not a rip off.
But I have a feeling the child coffin is obviously a more tragic situation, really heartbreaking, and parents are wanting to honor them, so they're like, "Give me the
Gold
pink
casket.
pearl, yeah, the one that was their favorite color, and let's get a pearl,
Yeah.
whatever, like, and make it shaped like a unicorn because that was their favorite story, and like, and this, I can just see things like being really expensive that way too.
Yeah, same here. Also, you asked the question about when poor people die. I wondered when I was looking at all these costs. I wondered, what happens when homeless people die if they don't have any known relatives or anything. Like what happens in that situation? And it's not a very exciting answer. It's just the county or city. All of the costs are there, but it's at the county or city's expense. So essentially, taxpayers pay for they're not getting expensive coffins. It's just a pauper's grave. But
Do they try to? I mean, I'm assuming they put out like an obituary type thing. That's its own interesting little
yeah,
thing that we
that
do.
is.
Obituaries.
I didn't look up how much that costs or any kind of any information about that. But yeah, obituaries are interesting.
Well, now that
too.
no one really does like print news and stuff. These websites have popped up, kind of like wedding sites. It's a whole industry that you probably pay, and you can do some GoFundMe stuff or donate to this cause stuff, and I'm sure that I'm kind of speaking. I don't know what I'm saying exactly, except that everyone does a wedding website and you pay a little bit for a domain, and like,
That's
and it can
weird.
do digital invites, and it can collect donation,
Yeah.
gift donations and all
Yeah.
sorts, and you can write all sorts of things. And
I
so
mean,
I imagine there's a lot similar thing with
for deaths.
yeah, like obituaries. That here's an article about them, or here's a thing.
Yeah.
Like I know there's. I understand. Actually, if anything, I can get behind the idea of an obituary because it's something
It's
that's
memory,
like, hey,
yeah.
here, yeah, it's about the person more than about the body.
Yes.
So it's like, hey, this person. It's a way to let you know they died and like
Yeah.
and
An
celebrate
announcement
them in some
and
way.
celebration. Yeah, I agree. I can get more behind that. The website, the fact that newspapers, are essentially unread now, especially local newspapers, that does put the obituary business really in a tight spot. So it sounds like they've adapted in some way, but I don't like the new model that much. It sounds like what you're
I
saying.
don't know that the model is that. All I know is that I have seen some people's links on Facebook that are like that, and I've looked and I've read quickly about them, and it says in lieu of flowers, donate to this organization. So I don't know. I didn't click around or spend much time, but it seemed like it was a website devoted toward, recognizing people's deaths, kind of thing. So
Now, one other thing that I found pretty ridiculous about the process of dying is, not the cost. I mean, I did find it kind of ridiculous, the cost for funerals and all the little bits and pieces of that. But then on the government side, like you mentioned, there's a tax, and yeah, there's a estate tax or an inheritance tax, or sometimes both of those when you die, that I find kind of ridiculous, particularly the inheritance tax. Like if you die and you leave your possessions to, your children or your relatives or whatever, you've already paid taxes on that money or those items or
right.
whatever. But now just because you're giving them to your children or whoever, they now have to pay tax on that. And the
which is
values
weird. It's already taxed. It's
the
like,
values
what's
can
going
be
on?
pretty ridiculous. Like, well, so
Because
there's
often
two.
this is like a life savings. This can be inheritance, can be like giant sums of money. So if you put
Yeah.
percentages on that, I mean, gosh.
Well, that's what it is. So, like estate taxes, that is a tax on the right to transfer property. So that kind of that comes off the top before it ever makes it to the pockets of the
Yuck.
the
This stuff
whoever.
grosses me out.
Now, it was a little better than I thought. It's not in either of the states that we live in, but there are still some states that have an estate tax. Usually, how it works is there's some lower cutoff. So if the estate is $1 million or more, then they tax 18% or something like that. In Hawaii, by the way, that tax is up to 20%, which is just crazy.
Wow.
Right? 20%.
Wow, that's so much.
And then there's a federal estate tax too. So not just state, but there's a federal one as well. It's graduated, but it starts at 18% if you have a $12 million estate. So if you're really rich and you have $12 million, then right off the top, 18% of that is going back to to Uncle Sam. Whatever state you live in, if they have an estate tax, some off the top is going there. And if your state is unlucky enough to have an inheritance tax as well, then when you give the remaining bit of your money to your descendants or your remaining relatives or whoever, then they have to pay a tax on that money as well. So it's a little more common than a state tax, but like in New Jersey, that inheritance tax is 16%.
Wow.
So they're really going after you.
What's the justification aside from sort of a wealth redistribution argument? Because that's an argument, sure. But they don't. What are they arguing that this just takes? I mean, because you've already paid taxes on it. This is money, and you want to get you have a right to do what you will with your money, and you say, I want to give it to this person. Okay, well now they're saying we have to pay this tax. I'm just curious why their answer. What's the answer to that?
Well, I see this as just blatant theft. I mean, I'm one of those people that thinks that taxation just in general is theft for the most part. But to me, what this reads as is the government always needs money. they're not connected to the people who died or the estate or the family or anything. They're emotionally distant. So all they want is money. They just want and need money. They figure what's happening is the person who died, they don't need the money anymore. They're not going to argue if we take a big section of money. And the family, the people who are inheriting the money, they're getting money out of it. So they're going to be happy getting money, and it's not going to cause that much blowback if we take some of that money off the top. And so that's what the government is about minimizing the outcry, because almost everything they do is bad, and if they can manage to minimize the outcry, then they can still get away with whatever they want with their taxation or whatever. And so this minimizes it. So kudos to them for being like very evil in that way.
Yeah, very
Successfully
in
evil,
their
but like to me it's egregious. Like I can't imagine like at some point in the past, these taxes weren't in place in the United States. So I just trying to imagine the legislative session or whatever get together of politicians. They're in a room and they're like, okay, all right, we need some money. Let's prey on families, in grief who've had someone die. Let's take money from out of their pockets. We've already taxed it, multiple times because we taxed it when they earned it. We taxed it when they spent it. We taxed them on multiple other things that they spend it on. Maybe let's just tax it also, when they die, and then when their relatives get it as well. So, kind of crazy.
Very crazy.
So I mean, when you factor all of that in, death is not free.
It's kind of like, how we do Bennett fixes sports. You should fix death.
Bennett fixes death. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, we just take the bodies, throw them in, and of course the government doesn't take their money.
Well, I mean, honestly, like I don't have a problem with the voluntary spending of money on ceremonies or whatever. If people
if someone wants to do it up big and rent a big, throw a party in their honor, I mean, I could see that being a semi-regular thing. But now it's just, I think what happens though is the social pressures. Like you don't want to do a tacky funeral or a tacky wedding, and so that pressure is immense. So people will will break the bank to avoid being tacky. Isn't that wild?
It is wild, and for me personally, that's the kind of thing that just I have a hard time. I have a hard time with that, and that's why when it comes to weddings, I really appreciated your wedding, which was not super traditional. It wasn't very stuffy, and so I thought that was great. So I hope your funeral.
It felt like a party for the weekend. It really did. It felt like a party.
Right. I hope your funeral
is a celebration
of
us, and I don't feel like it veered too far. It felt personal. I felt reflective of our personalities, and yeah.
So yeah, I'll be looking forward to the same thing out of your funeral.
Yeah. That's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting topic. Death.
Yeah.
It's over. Death.